Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. Unfortunately, I didn't have any time to prepare an elaborate intro for this one. So I'm your host this evening. We've got a game coming up against Airdrie with our pre-match preview. I'm joined by, firstly, Blair Hopcroft. How are you getting on, Blair?
Very well, mate. Very well. Looking forward to getting back to Airdrie's Excelsior. What's it? Shiesbury Excelsior? I didn't care what's
It's
called anymore.
the Albert Bartlett, if you can believe it. So it's
Albert
the
Bartlett,
potato
the Rooster
company.
Potatoes. Yeah, the
Aye,
Potato Stadium. Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to
good
it.
stuff. And of course, we're joined by Carol Smith. How are you getting on, Carol?
I'm very good. First week back at work after 8 weeks vacation. I'm ready for another holiday.
Struggle
Completely
is real.
understandable.
Yeah.
Happens to everyone, doesn't it? So, yeah. Currently, Alan's. I totally messed up the pre-match invitations for the podcast. Alan, are you on tonight? No, I'm a bit busy with the VR room that's at the hotel. What was it? In the arcade and down in Pints, he was saying. So, I'm sure he's having a great time over in Egypt. But yes, regardless. So yeah, Blair, you rightfully mentioned Airdrie were away to the Albert Bartlett Stadium this weekend. Bit of an exodus for them in the summer. So they had 9 outgoing players, including their manager as well, Rhys McCabe, as well as the likes of Adam Frizzell, Craig Watson, Mason Hancock as well, I believe. But then you've got 8 players and 2 loanees coming in. A few familiar faces there in Jamie Barr-Jonas, Sean McGinty, the guy Henderson from Hamilton, as well as Charlie Telfer and Cole McKinnon from Rangers. What have you made of their business in the summer so far, and just their sort of start to the league campaign?
Business has been a bit kind of, I thought quite muted actually. They've not really brought in a huge amount of quality, I don't think. They seem to have, they had ties with this, I forget the name of it, it was Jackie McNamara's
Concilium.
Yeah, and they seem to have cut ties with that. So I don't know whether that's been their main source of players, but they've definitely lost some pretty decent players. I was always a really big fan of Mason Hancock in particular. He was a bit of a player, so they've definitely lost a few. I mean, they've clearly brought a few in, but not. I don't know. It's a really strange one. There's nobody really where you're looking at it and going. I think most teams have had at least a player where you go, that's a pretty good signing. I mean, we spoke about even like the Queen's Park and stuff, like who we thought were going to be dead and buried from the very off, and then all of a sudden they kind of signed like Ewan Murray and Aidan Connolly and stuff, and then there's kind of 2 or 3 other players coming in. The Pars seem to be bringing in, 1 or 2 kind of semi-decent players at least. I'm not really sure about Airdrie's squad, to be honest with you. As far as start of the season goes, it's been pretty much the same as everybody in the Championship because there's so many draws. Like it's nobody's kind of cut adrift, nobody's kind of miles away from it. I mean, they're yet to win, aren't they? They haven't won a game yet. Couple of draws and a few defeats, but you just. I don't know. Like it's again, we were in the same boat last season. You ship your manager that early in the season, it can take a good few weeks to recover. And Danny Lennon, as much as I love the guy for what he did when he was with us in a Rovers jersey, it's not the most inspiring of appointments.
Yeah, and Carol, just for you, were you quite surprised because they bring in 3 players from the recently relegated Hamilton Accies? So Barjonas, McGinty and Henderson all come in there. Was that a bit of a surprise for you to see that sort of strategy? And then obviously they go down the route. I don't know what's happened behind the scenes, but it does seem a bit of a falling out. So maybe a bit of a destabilisation as well with Rhys McCabe walking away.
They do seem to be a little, the perfect word there is unstable. Obviously hoovering up Hamilton's relegation issues. And signing those players, but definitely McCabe leaving on the first day, like Blair says, it just rattles your season. And if he wasn't happy, that means that probably the dressing room's still rattled. So I don't know if Danny Lennon's the best person to go in that and calm it down.
Yeah, I'm keen to see how things pan out for Danny Lennon over the course of the season because I do feel, I mean, it's a tough gig for the guy. particularly if results aren't forthcoming. We've seen it before with ourselves, where you appoint a manager where the fans are straight away, they're unconvinced. We had it with Gary Locke before. And then that in turn kind of feeds into it when the results don't go your way. And people are like, well, you've kind of proved me right by the way that this is going.
I think if you do sack your manager this early on, as we experienced last season, it shortens people's patience. It puts you immediately either we're going to have to get the new manager bounce, and if we don't get that, then we get frustrated. So it definitely shortens the patience of fans, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even with this one, I think it was more of a sort of falling out, and they decided to go their mutual ways, which is even more kind of feeds into the point that you're making, that you've had a manager that was, I mean, Rhys McCabe wasn't by any means perfect, but he's a very, very serviceable manager at this level. So it does create a sort of anxiety, probably you'd imagine within the Airdrie support, where they sort of say, well, we had a manager that had us at least stable level. Admittedly, they would have gone down were it not for Hamilton's indiscretions last season. But yeah, with them, keen to see how that one pans out. Did you catch any other game against Thistle last Friday, Blair?
Yeah, I sat and watched it. I was away. I was working in Glasgow, trying to explain to a French guy in the hotel that I'd like to watch Partick Thistle versus Airdrieonians, and he's going, what? But yeah, I sat and watched it. Kind of, I don't know, kind of two minds in it, because Airdrie weren't very good. I don't think anybody's watching that game and thinking what a stellar performance Airdrie put in, but they were also quite unlucky in the end, because Partick kind of huffed and puffed for a lot of that game without ever really looking like they were going to do an awful lot. And then all of a sudden they scored twice in the space of, I don't know, it was 10, 15 minutes or something, and took the victory, probably deservedly over the piece, in fairness. But I think Airdrie were pretty close to hanging on, but they were hanging on. There is still some players in that squad that you look at and you go, like, they're decent. Lewis Strapp, he doesn't quite look back to his blistering best, but he's been a thorn in championship sides for a while. Do you know what I mean? When he was at Morton in particular, that long throw and just the general shithousery that he brings. He's one of the kind of players that's got that nasty streak in him. I don't think he's a bad guy, but he's got that kind of dig and grit about him, which is quite useful at this level. And bringing Telfer back in, I mean, Charlie Telfer's a good player, do you know what I mean? So getting him back in probably strengthens them a bit, but they were no very good. They didn't really look particularly dangerous, although they did a better job than us of cancelling out the wingers, to be fair, against Partick. But you just kind of look at their team, and it's, like I say, there's Charlie Telfer's probably the only one where you go, he's actually really quite good. Everybody else, you're going, much of a muchness. Jamie Barjonas, like, I don't know, like, but in terms of that game, yeah, a really weird one. Almost, it sounds again kind of dismissive, but it was almost more about how poor Partick were than how good Airdrie were. Like, I don't think either team particularly performed particularly well.
Yeah, the bit that seemed to jump out was just a lack of options at the top end of the pitch. I know that their fans have been very frustrated by the sort of lack of signings, really, that they've brought in. They did bring in a player from down south, I think it was from Luton. So with players coming in from down south, always a bit of a gamble, as we know. We've seen it in the past before. Sometimes they can do very, very well, be very successful. Other times, just not really looking the part. So it's hard to sort of weigh up how well they're going to adjust. I would agree with what you say, though, that they did very well to stifle the Partick Thistle wingers, but then just the lack of options there. And I think it's when you get to that point, it makes it very difficult, because as well, you're kind of inviting the sort of pressure, because it's almost like Partick sort of say to themselves, actually, they've not really got much else here, and then they can just kind of push forward and go for it and look down different avenues. Just with Airdrie so far, Carol, you've they've only scored the 4 goals. The record in terms of the league so far, 3 losses and 2 draws. But does that make them a bit of a, it's like the wounded animal in the corner, always liable to bite you?
Yes.
Does that make it a
Completely.
tough one to predict?
It's Rovers versus, or Airdrie versus Rovers. It's we're either going to do fantastic or we're going to lose and lose spectacularly. It's. I'm going to be honest. I was prepping for the podcast. I googled Airdrie because I was like, they've not been on my radar for the first few games of the season. I missed the game last Friday, but nothing jumped out. I didn't see anything the following morning going, this was a great game or anything. So they definitely haven't appeared on the radar. But when I seen them on the fixture list for this weekend, I was like, yeah, that doesn't fill me with confidence and glee.
Yeah, with the options that they do have, I sort of go back to what Blair kind of said before, where you look at some of the players you've already mentioned of Telfer, and on top of that, Lewis Strapp, Chris Mockery has started the season really, really well. Maybe faded a bit, but I think they're trying to use him as a forward. It's kind of in a similar way to probably the people looking at us using Paul McMullen saying, what's going on there? But as well, they still had Dylan McDonald, who I think is going to be a doubt for this game, and he looked really impressive at right back before. So, yeah, with them, I've seen a lot of comments about Airdrie and their start to the season and how they don't really look as much of the same team as they have before, but we've been caught out with this so many times. The main positive I'm kind of taking into it is that we've done well to break our ducks at places like Cappielow and Somerset so far this season. Blair, do you think Saturday could be a potential quite a big day given the tightness in the top 5? As you mentioned before, it's kind of all the teams are around about each other in that top 5. Everyone from St Johnstone right down to I think is it Dunfermline in 5th, I think, at the moment, or Arbroath?
Yeah, Dunfermline sitting in 5th, aye.
Yeah,
I mean it's so tight. It's so early in the season, and there's so many draws in the championship that, with the exception of St Johnstone, there doesn't really look like anybody that's going to kind of strip away from everybody else. So it keeps it really tight. That said, like, if it's the same thing we say every season, if we can't go to Airdrie and win the game, like, we can't be looking at the top end of the table and thinking that we're going to be potentially challenging for the title, or at least kind of making a really good run for the playoffs, rather than just kind of hobbling into 4th kind of thing. They're the games you've got to be winning. But then that said, I mean, if you look at the table and you look at form, you would say the same about Ross County, and that's just a nonsense thing to say, because they are the wounded animal. I mean, they are going to be the ones that are going to come back to bite somebody. Airdrie's, like I say, it's a funny one. Change of manager, a relatively uninspiring appointment, and whether or not he instills in them the same thing as what McCabe did, it remains to be seen. Like, we talk about Airdrie the way we used to talk about Inverness. Like, there's this kind of weird hoodoo type thing going on. Not so much that you can't win a game, but basically that every game has to finish 1-0 and you don't know which way it's going to kind of go. But at least in my head, that's only really been a McCabe thing, because we never really struggled against them that much before. So
we used to say
I think
thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was. Well, yeah. I mean, no, the never being able to beat Airdrie was definitely a Murray thing. But yeah, I kind of look at it and I think, do you know what? It's a game where the onus is on us. We can't go there and wait for them to come out at us. They're not going to come out at us. It's going to be a bit like Queen's Park, that first game of the season. You know, we go 1-0 down in the first 15, 20 minutes. We've got a long day ahead of us. Whereas if you get yourself a goal in the first 5, 10 minutes, you could easily kick on and get 2, 3, 4. Like, it's one of the games where the knife edge is going to be how the game pans out and how the game kind of starts. So I'd like to see us go there and properly go for them. Like, they are, in my head anyway, and this is where I'll get clipped, they're there for the taking. They are absolutely there for the taking, and we should not be going there looking at, playing defensively or trying to catch them on the hop or whatever. It's got to be that back to the Barry ball of kind of counter press and catching them on the hop and getting early goals. And yeah, I'm like I say, I'm genuinely quite looking forward to it. Actually, I haven't missed the game on Saturday. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a game where we're dominant. Would be really nice, actually.
I'm trying to think of the number of times. Airdrie must be up there as one of the grounds that I've visited the most in Scottish football. I've been going there since the playoffs. I think we lost under McGlynn, or where it was. I think the first leg had gone against us, and then the second leg.
Yeah.
I cannot ever think of a game that I've gone to Airdrie and it's not been tight. Like, I think the biggest win that I've seen us have there was actually when we played Queen of the South in the Challenge Cup final, rather bizarrely.
Yeah, probably.
Because generally the games have all been decided by a single goal. I'm trying to actually remember if I've seen some there where we were cruising and Gregory Taddy hit a shot over the stadium and then got sent off right after it, bizarrely. Because the referee, I don't know if the referee thought he was kicking the ball away or what, but
yeah, that's right.
Just looking back, it's always been not so much an unhappy hunting ground, because we went for a long spell. We were unbeaten against Airdrie for a good long time, and then that kind of got flipped on its head. It's so strange.
It's never felt like a place where you go, oh man, we're away to Airdrie on Saturday. But the last couple of years, it definitely has. And I'm hoping this change of manager gets rid of that, because I want to get back to going there and enjoying it.
Yeah, it would be fun if we could do that there. But Carol, do you think it's just it's a really trite point, but probably still true, just to make sure that I know that a lot of people will maybe look at Airdrie down the bottom of the league and we're kind of thinking, right, this is our opportunity, but also as well, still got to respect them and make sure, because they do have the players there.
Yeah, I think any team, maybe with watching St Johnstone last week, maybe they are the exception. Any team can be any team in this championship. You can't take anything for granted. They might be lacking something up front, but that doesn't stop them scoring goals. So it shouldn't be a problem going to Airdrie, but it does fill me with, oh, geez, we're going to lose an 89th minute goal after hitting the bar 5 times. It's just, it doesn't fill me with joy.
Well, Airdrie, with them, it's one to watch on how they line up as well, because I don't think the fans have been particularly happy about the goalkeeper, and looking to get potentially Cade Melrose back in. He came in towards the tail end of the last season for Kieran Wright, and he just never went away after that, because he just looked so much more of an assured goalkeeper than Kieran Wright did. Somehow Kieran Wright's still propping up the bench in the Europa League for Rangers, which is absolutely bonkers. 26 years old, 27 years old, and they got a new contract in the summer. I'm sure there's an explanation for it. Probably.
Has he ever played a game for Rangers? I think he has.
He has. It's just
it's wild.
Gets these holidays paid for when he just goes away.
Yeah, totally. I must admit, it's funny you say about the goalie that I hadn't seen anything about them calling for it. He was actually one of the few players I was a wee bit more impressed with on Friday night. I thought the goalie did all right, because last season it did feel like they just had 2 young boys. Well, they did. They literally did just have 2 young boys, both on loan, both kind of just not really doing an awful lot wrong, but not doing an awful lot right either. And I know this boy that they've got in there now started at Motherwell. We were talking about this on Friday night. I think it was Motherwell he started at.
Yeah.
It looks all right. I thought he did quite well on Friday night.
Yeah, it's with Airdrie's goalkeepers, as I say, Melrose, he came in towards the tail end of the last season. I think he endeared himself quite a lot to their support, but even at the start of the last season, they had a bizarre situation where they brought in the 2 keepers from Hibs, both on loan.
That's right.
And it was kind of like, well, surely you would want them to go to different clubs, so they're both getting game time, but there we are. With their circumstances, hopefully we can sort of just get a way to break them down again. It's hard to know what to expect in terms of their front line, because you can fall into this trap of reading too much about past results, and then you go there and it's just things were set up for them on the day. So we'll see how that goes. What we'll do is we'll turn our attention towards Rovers now. Blair, I just want to come back to or head back to last Saturday. You weren't on the post-match podcast, but what did you make about the game overall? And just whereabout are you sitting in terms of things like the formation in the squad? Do you think it's maybe time for a change of shape or personnel? Or are you quite relaxed about it all? Admittedly, this is probably going to be very different to Barry Robson's opinion.
Yeah, totally. I listened to the post match. I genuinely, I texted you both after it. I thought it was a really good listen actually, and it's not an easy gig doing a podcast with just two of you. But I found myself just agreeing with everything that you were saying. The formation, I was kind of like Duncan. I was a wee bit kind of, do we really need to be changing the formation? But he did change the formation, and I kind of thought it worked okay actually. Like, there seems to have been, I don't do the whole pie and bovril and all that nonsense, but there seems to have been a bit of a panic and a bit of kind of real negativity around the game on Saturday, which I didn't particularly understand. I was working, but I was kind of watching it on the iPad while I was working. And the early, I say the early goal, the chance for Vaughan, which it sounds again mad, but you would be hoping he does better or something like that. But it was a really difficult kind of chance. But he's got that in his locker. To miss that and then concede so quickly, I thought was really interesting, because at that point it was like St Johnstone just went, and we're done. That'll do. Thank you very much. We'll just see out our 1-0 win. Not like massively defensively, but they just kind of stopped really doing a huge amount. And I thought we acquitted ourselves pretty well. I thought we held our own. And actually I thought the formation was working. I know the long balls up, they weren't pretty, but we can't always be pretty. Like, the long balls up weren't very good, but we were winning a hell of a lot of second balls up there. Putting the ball up in the air, and their centre halves are kind of winning headers. They're not going anywhere. They were dropping to Dylan Easton, or they were dropping to Scott Brown, and they were kind of in the middle of the park. And I thought we were getting a bit of joy just actually taking ourselves kind of 30, 40 yards further up the park. I was having a wee look, and I mentioned this in the group chat before it. I think it's really interesting that St Johnstone have only conceded twice, and both goals that they've conceded have both been the first goal in the game. So they lost a goal to Partick early on, and they lost a goal to Morton earlier on. And I wonder actually if that's going to be kind of characteristic of how they play, that they're going to get a goal up, and you're not going to be able to break them down, because they're not going to let you break them down, and because they're not going to chase 2, 3, 4, and 5. They'll keep playing, and they'll eventually get goals, because every team in the championship ships goals. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be the kind of swashbuckling, tearing you to bits kind of team. Maybe they will. Maybe that'll develop. But I was all right. I'll be honest. I was all right with the performance. I'd have liked to say, I think the point you guys made, I think it was you, Robbie, actually, that was talking about the substitutions kind of later on, I think is really valid. I think it'd be nice to see him kind of just be a wee bit more adventurous with the substitutions. I thought he kind of played it safe. I don't think there was anything he did that was... There was no substitution where you're going, it was crying out for Josh Gentles to come on or whatever. Like, you kind of look at that bench and go, why on earth is that guy not getting on? But it would have been nice to see him being a wee bit more adventurous, I think, and actually just kind of roll the dice a little bit, particularly in the last 15, 20 minutes or so. The second goal just comes from chaos. Like, it's just, we're rushing everything, we're trying. But I like the fact that we're chasing the game. Like, there's no rolling over and have your belly tickled. Like, the Rovers kind of turned up to try and do something, and it's not always going to come off. And St Johnstone are a good side. But in answer to your question about formation, I wouldn't go back to 3 at the back for Saturday. I think we will go back to 3 at the back for certain games, and I think we should for certain games. But I'm not sure 3 at the back against Airdrie is the way to do it, actually. I think having the width in Paul McMullen was really refreshing. actually. I think you spoke about it again in the post-match about how effective he is when he's out wide. I thought it was really, really good. I also really like, I always have, I really like Easton coming in off the left. I think there's a bit of joy to be had there. And yeah, just having I kind of want to see some strikers on Saturday. I think it's no a game that we need to be, like I said earlier on, I don't think it's a game we need to be overly cautious about. I think we should be kind of going out and kind of imposing ourselves on the game rather than kind of wait to see what Airdrie do.
And Carol, for you, what were your main takeaways from last weekend and sort of going into this one? Does your perspective change given the opposition from like who Rovers should be using personnel wise?
Last week's game, it was weird. Even though we lost, I didn't feel that it was a bad game for the Rovers. I didn't feel like we played badly to lose 2 goals. So it's that if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing. Do you change the formation? Because it didn't work particularly well last week against that opposition, but I think it will work well against Airdrie. But I'm with Blair. I think we need to take the game to them from the beginning and not let them come to us, because it is, I think I've said it in the group chat a few times, I'm convinced that if Dalen Easton is up for it, you can tell in the first 15 minutes. And that's when we need to score in the first 15 minutes. It just seems to settle everything down, obviously. I mean, it's cliche. It seems to settle everything down, but yeah. Because your next question, or your question in a while, is going to be, what's your lineup? And I have gone through 5 pages of paper today, trying to work out how I'm going to line it up. And I just keep going, keep it the same. It'll be fine.
Well, for formations, my thoughts would be going towards a potential 4-2-3-1. I can't remember. I think it must have been that we spoke about it in the group chat. But I feel like this squad's like the way that you can see it. If you get Hamilton up top, you can use Vaughan as a 10. You can have Easton out wide and McMullen out wide. And then you can have your 2 holding midfielders. Hi, Blair. We've not coordinated this.
Exactly the same thing written down. Genuinely
for
same.
the benefit of Spotify users, Blair's just held up his lineup going into this one. But
exactly the same.
At the back, I feel like I don't think there's a huge difference that we're going to get by having the 3 centre backs. I know you kind of touched on it before, but to Jordan Doherty, I said it in the post-match podcast, very, very flexible in terms of the role that he can play. And as well, you've got the likes of Josh Mullen. Admittedly, I'm not sure how you would feel about Josh Mullen being a full-back rather than being a wing-back. He's adjusted really well there. And then, J. Rowe, you can potentially, I'm sure that was mentioned before he arrived, that he can play as a sort of wider up or further up the pitch. Whether we'd use him as potential option out on the wing at some point and just saying to him, like, just be a bit more direct and just go for it. So I suspect we might go back to what we've been using before, given the personnel available. I mean, Josh Mullen, would he be one in line for a potential return, do you think, Blair?
I mean, I think it's well documented, my love of Josh Mullen. I think if you're going to go back to 3 at the back, Josh has got to come back in for me. I think he was pretty unfortunate to be forced out in the first place. Although actually, having seen a couple of slow motion replays up close to that tackle, maybe no quite as unfortunate as we initially thought. But the shift to 3 at the back, your right wing back position, I mean, you can use J. Rowe, you can use Josh Mullen. I think Josh Mullen's earned, for me anyway, he's earned that place if he does go back to 3 at the back, because he's not done a lot wrong at all, actually. He's been pretty good. His delivery into the box and stuff is really good as well. I think, I can't remember who it was, I think it might have been yourself, Robbie, was talking about McMullen and his deliveries and stuff as well. And, like, there's nobody to aim for at the moment. Like, so you've got McMullen getting up there. He beats a man again, and he looks up and he's trying to kind of find a threaded pass, or he's trying to find a cutback. But actually, like, that attempt for Vaughan on Saturday, it reminded me so much of the first goal we scored against Dundee United in the first game at Starks. The one where Vaughan takes it on the header and it hits the post and comes back at him.
And he gets the rebound.
But it was the same thing. Early cross from deep, catch them on the hop, don't let them settle. But who are you aiming for? You're aiming for Lewis Vaughan. And like with the best will in the world, no winger wants to be on the wing crossing balls in for Lewis Vaughan to try and beat flipping big giant centre halves for headers. He can do it and he will do it at times, but it's not ideal. So having Hamilton in there, I think would make a huge difference as well. But my worry with it, if I'm honest, is if you go three at the back, what do you do in the midfield is the concern for me, because I think that's the bit where we might all slightly disagree, but you've got to make room for someone somewhere. And if you don't do it with your back three, you don't do it with your wing backs, he's going to end up doing it with strikers again, and he's going to end up going back to playing. I'm sorry, it just blows my mind. We can't go to the Red Rooster Potato Stadium with no strikers on Saturday. Like, it's just
Well, to have 13 players, that's my conclusion today when I was working it out. It was like, well, who do you, if you need to make room, that's the other speak for, who do you drop? Who do you move on to?
I've got a controversial choice, but
yeah.
Well, we'll hold on to it for now, Blair, before we get the listenership enraged. But yeah, Carol, for you, I mean, Airdrie looked sort of comfortable in stopping Thistle out wide last week. Do you think that might be a factor in terms of how we line up, or do you think that Barry Robson will maybe be a bit more optimistic, sort of saying Paul McMullen, for instance, obviously performed well when he's been shifted out wide in the last couple of games, or the last 3 games. What would be your take on
I just want Paul McMullen to get a goal, really.
Me too.
I just want him to get that monkey off his back. I think I'm not going to give the lineup. If I was lining up, I would bring it just a little bit in, because I do think Airdrie are, like, from what you said last week for the game and the highlights that I've seen, they will close down on the wing. So maybe just narrowing it down. But then McMullen's good on the wing. He's good, and I want him to get a goal. Robbie, you've asked the most complicated question of my life today. Basically, what does the Rovers do with its lineup?
Well, that's why we're here, to ask the hard-hitting questions, Carol, admittedly, often not very seriously. And for you, Blair, with Hamilton, one of the sort of key figures that would probably stand out in their defence is going to be Sean McGinty. Now, obviously, we know what Sean McGinty is all about. We've seen him play plenty of times for Hamilton, Ayr United and Morton before. I mean, is that kind of lined up for a possible route, given the sort of high press that Barry Robson knows and loves? And do you think Airdrie will sort of be looking to potentially exploit that with a counter press, and sort of us maybe trying for McGinty and then trying to beat that?
No, I mean, he's an old-fashioned championship centre half. If you put the ball in the air, he will header it all day long. But you put the ball at his feet, and certainly the last sort of 18 months or so are proof enough that he's there to be got at. I mean, I'm trying to remember if it was Gullen or Marsh, but somebody ripped him apart at Hamilton last season in that midweek game. He really struggled. So, yeah, maybe there's an argument for that counter press and stuff. For me, the counter press isn't the formation. The formation doesn't lead to that counter press. Playing 3 at the back and no strikers or whatever. I say no strikers. It's not no strikers, because he's playing McMullen and Easton up front. Like, that's ultimately what he's doing. He's using them in a different way. That counter press is still there, regardless of whether he plays wide or whether he's playing, with wing backs or whatever, or whether he's pushing his 3 kind of up front. I think that's just his style of play. I do kind of, and he gets a lot of, he doesn't get a lot of stick, but he doesn't. I don't think Robson always gets the credit he deserves. I think he recognised that Saturday in particular, just past, counter pressing St Johnstone you can counter-press them all day in this league. I don't think it's going to make any difference whatsoever. So actually what he tried to do was do something different, and I'd like going a bit more direct and kind of pinging balls into corners and trying to kind of get the ball into centre half's heads and then pick up the second balls. As Duncan said on the post-match, it ain't always pretty, but if it works, it works. Nobody's, you're not paying your money to see pretty, you're paying your money to see wins. So Saturday coming, I'd like to see him play in a way that utilises the squad that he's got in the game that he's playing against the opposition that he's playing against. And I think that's the key thing for me is there's nothing wrong with going direct against St Johnstone. There's nothing wrong with playing no strikers away to Ayr United. Nothing wrong with any of those things. I do think that you can't just do the same thing every week. And he's not doing the same thing every week. But I think it's tailoring what you're doing for the opposition that you're playing and the players you have available. We've got a pretty much a full squad at the moment, unless there's injuries. Although I don't know. I'd heard rumours of a sickness bug, but I don't know how rife it is. But so there might well be changes as a result of that. But presuming that everybody's fit, because we've not heard otherwise, I'd like to see him. Like I keep saying, I'd like to see him impose our game on them. The high press is important, but yeah, getting them in a way that suits our squad, and actually sometimes changing it up and playing that three, kind of forward three, if you like, or forward four even, might be the way to do that. Certainly the way I would do it if I was him, but he gets paid a lot more money than me for very, very good reason.
I mean, it would be a big surprise, I think, that would probably throw Airdrie off. I'm sure with scouting and the way that things are nowadays, that they'll have done all their analysis and they'll have seen how we've played in our last few games and probably expecting a similar sort of thing. I would love to see us go back to that sort of, because we've seen, I know me and Duncan mentioned it before, but we've seen it towards the tail end of last season where some of the football that we did play was good, but just on the deck, scoring goals, being able to get forward, and kind of culminated on the final day. And I know that it was a Queen's Park side that didn't have anything to really play for and that we had everything to play for, and they were playing a few younger lads. But at the same time, your team can still go out there and do it. And if they do it to the degree that they have done previously before at the end of that last season, there's no reason that we can't go out and try and make it a successful Saturday afternoon and get a good result. It's not going to be easy by any means. I mean, we've seen before, probably one of the standout players in the league, Carol, you mentioned him, Dylan Easton, talking about performances. Fair to say that he's maybe due a big performance against Airdrie. He's not really had much luck against them since we came up, and he's left them in League One when he initially joined us. Would you be optimistic of that, as particularly if maybe Dylan McDonald, sort of the right back that you usually have, is missing?
Yeah, I think that Dylan Easton is definitely due a fantastic showman performance against Airdrie. It would be nice to see. I think Dylan Easton this season seems to be a bit more less likely to have less likely to have a bad game and more likely to have a good game or an okay game. And I think even Dylan Easton on an okay game against Airdrie and the current Airdrie squad could be entertaining. If he's on his game, he will hopefully put on a lovely show.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he was very good on Saturday for what it's worth. Certainly the first half. I thought he was really good in the first half. Carried the ball, he looked dangerous. Every time he got the ball, he looked dangerous. It just never quite came off for him or anybody actually really on Saturday. But
St Johnstone, this is just looked. I don't want to say the word more professional, but they're just you can tell they're the Premiership coming down. They've just obviously got better facilities, better training, better understanding because they were in the Premiership for that long period of time. They're just that little bit better, but not
having 26 first-team players probably helps as well.
That does help. I wasn't going to mention the squad numbers, but that does. Yeah, because that helps during the week with the training, is you don't have to train them as well, because you can do formations, etc., with bigger groups. So, I think that's the Rovers. If they perform like they did at St Johnstone against Airdrie, I don't have any fear but I still have fear because it's Airdrie.
Yeah, with to focus it back on our group of players and our squad, I would say that the good thing now is that previously, before going into games against Airdrie, a lot of the time you felt like that there was maybe a bit of an onus on Dylan Easton in particular to step up to the mark, because we've maybe been missing key players. Less so maybe during the Murray season, but particularly last season when Lewis Vaughan's been injured. We've had Jack Hamilton missing, Callum Smith's obviously just getting back now into sort of full fitness, hopefully. Whereas our squad seems a bit more well-rounded now in the sense that we've got the likes of Paul McMullen, even guys like Richard Chin that you can bring off the bench. I know that we'll always mention that. And I mean, to be honest, Richard Chin might be well in line for a start if we were using wingers and being able to go down that route. I don't think anyone would sort of say, "Oh, that's a shock" if he did start, because he's been performing so well when he has came off the bench. So it's look, there's a lot of different routes that we can go down in terms of our squad and the options that we've got. And really,
Robson's
the question
not going
is
to take
just,
any of them, but there is
just whether Barry Robson actually decides to pull the trigger with it. So,
totally.
Carol, you've been tearing through the paper, as you mentioned. Can you want to give us your lineup?
Okay, I'm going to try and read my own scribbled writing and my notes that I've made on both my phone and a bit of paper, because that's organised as you've ever been. So, what's this country? Stevenson, Hanlon, and Josh Mullen at the back. I've gone Brown, Byrne, and Doherty further up. Then I've gone Easton, Vaughan, McMullen, and Hamilton out front.
That is particularly wild, I would say. Yes.
It's wild.
Well,
Are you, Carol, are you drunk?
No.
It's wild.
Look, we're big proponents of Josh Mullen, but centre-back's going to be a bold choice. I
was like, I could go, let's just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or let's go full wild, and I went wild.
Yeah. Right, Blair, talk to us.
So
I've gone
a wee bit more conventional, actually, given that I've not actually gone that conventional. Josh Ray in goals, obviously. I'm sticking with the back four for last week. So Doherty, Fordyce, Hanlon, and Stevenson. Byrne and Matthews in the midfield. I'm taking Scott Brown out. Not particularly because he's done anything majorly wrong, but I don't think we need to turn up at Airdrie with three centre midfielders either. So one of them's got to drop out. And I thought Matthews, Saturday there and the week before, he's been really, really good. Been really solid the last few weeks. So I'd like to see him continuing there. McMullen wide right, Vaughan in the 10, Easton wide left, and Hamilton up front. So back to the kind of 4-2-3-1. And yeah, go at them, get a bit of width, keep the high press. You've got Easton and McMullen and Vaughan buzzing about the place, kind of picking up second balls and stuff, and hopefully having a bit of joy. But he'll almost certainly go three at the back with Josh Mullen at right wing back and no strikers.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write down the lineup, but Blair, I'm in full agreement with you and what you've came out with there. To be honest, it sounds like a cop out, but it genuinely would be the route I would go. Ross Matthews was actually the goal scorer for our last winner against Airdrie at their place, back in February, I think, 2020 it was. So not long before the pandemic kicked off. When Lewis Vaughan, we know that he can play in that sort of number 10 role, so to be able to utilise that and get Jack Hamilton within the team too would just offer sort of two very good focal points in terms of building up, because then you can come sort of short with Vaughan, or you can go a bit more direct. And to be honest, I would fancy Jack Hamilton against McGinty, even though he's so good in the air. The expectancy is that none of it's going to matter, because I suspect that Barry Robson will do his thing.
I just have a wee worry with particularly Hamilton, but Vaughan to an extent as well, that coming in and out the team all the time, it's not. I don't think it's helping them. I think Hamilton in particular, he needs to be playing kind of semi-regularly to get his eye in. It's like a kind of a forwards thing, I suppose, but it's just that some of the chances that he's not taken, Hamilton. There was the one against, I forget now, who was it? The one that flashed across the box, Partick, wasn't it?
Mm.
I just think, a Hamilton that's been playing week in, week out for 5 or 6 weeks, he probably scores that. So I'd like to see a wee bit of consistency with the selection, but we're in that weird position which we're never in, where you're going, right, we could probably do with 2 or 3 injuries actually just to freshen it up a wee bit, because it's not so much about who you bring in as who you take out. And there's not really a massive argument, I think, for taking anybody out of the team. I don't think there's anybody where you go, he's been stinking the place up for weeks and we need to replace him. It's just not the case.
That's part of the issue, isn't it? It's with the squad that we've got, there's such experience in there. I know that we've got one of the oldest, if not the oldest, sort of average starting 11.
I think it is the oldest.
Yeah, in the certainly in the Championship, if not the SPFL. But you do wonder when the hand's going to get forced as to when sort of things like injuries and niggles come up, and who's going to come in and take places and things like that. Because even on the bench, your likes of Darrell O'Connor, Ewan Wilson, etc., plenty to add. So I don't see any reason why not. And that's the hard bit, because these guys haven't played games yet. Even Niso and Gentles, still to get their sort of proper teeth into competitive football, really. But you still want to see them play. You still want to see them utilised. And we've not yet, even though it's been, 3 or 4 games now since a lot of them have came in. So time will tell.
Same before as well. Like I was going to say, every man in their dug's got the flu at the moment. Everybody you speak to seems to be absolutely full of it. So there's every chance that there's half a dozen of the squad are not going to be available on Saturday because they're lying in their beds coughing their guts up. So we could rock up on Saturday and it could be a completely different lineup just through sheer necessity. I do kind of worry with Robson if that's what it would take to make those wholesale changes, and I don't think that's a bad thing. The consistency, I think, has been pretty good. I'm just not sure that, like I said, I'm not sure rocking up at Airdrie with no strikers. I don't think it's going to fill me with hope.
I would be quite surprised if we ended up in that position, albeit, now that's famous last words, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
I think if it had happened maybe during the League Cup and you saw specific areas of the bench, we didn't have an extra left back, we didn't have an extra centre back, and we were playing free at the back, and then we had no forwards, and Vaughan and Hamilton are just really coming back into proper fitness levels given their injuries last season. I know Vaughan has had a bit of a longer time, got back into the team towards the end of last season. Whereas now you're like, okay, we do have the bodies there to be able to sort of rotate, and it's not sort of a bench that's filled up with young laddies, as far as we know. There is that aspect. Right, before we, because I have, of course, prepped a Should McStay or Should Dargo. You're not getting away that easy.
Clearly.
I just want to thank everyone for the kind words about the interview with John Greacon. Very enthusiastic in terms of the way that he put across the Rovers and talking about his time with the Fife Free Press. And it was a really, really good guest to have on, just with the sort of stories that he had. And a lot of the sort of comments very, very positive, which was great to see. So thank you again for taking the time to listen to that. And if you've not listened to it, I will put a link at the end so you can go back and watch that one next.
Genuinely, I was going to say, because I suppose you can't really blow your own trumpet too much, but genuinely really, really enjoyed it. Really, really good listen. So John's he's a Rovers fan. It's that thing you forget, like having done the job that he did. But it's sometimes you listen in an interview and somebody's kind of going through the motions or whatever. He sounded like he was having the time of his life, recounting all those tales, sort of thing. So I finished listening to it today. I actually sat in the drive for the last 10 minutes of the podcast because I didn't want to get in the car, so I could listen to the end of it. Genuinely, really, really good listen. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I would thoroughly recommend giving it a listen.
He did say after, if he's when he's back at Starks next time, at some point in the future, he'll give us a shout. So I might bring him up to the Macmillan Lounge or so. And
it'd be good.
Around. But yes, very fortunate. And I think it's only when you look back and you think about like the events that he's gone through. I mean, I'd completely blanked on how many Ballon d'Or winners Bayern Munich had in that squad, and you realise a lot of people, you'll see a lot of dismissive fans usually from other clubs, sort of saying you've released a kit about a game that you lost like 30 years ago, but they completely forget about the 2 games before and the backstory to it. So yeah, it's great because again, as I said to him, I wasn't about as a Rovers fan. I'm 36, but I wasn't keen on football at that point. Neither of my parents are football fans. They'll ask me about Rovers from time to time, but it's not something that really piques their interest. So very unfortunate timing on my part, but I'm sure you'll lift it up, Blair, for us. Right, anyway, should McStay or should Dargo? I've got 6 clues about she's already head and hands there, Carol, about a past or present Rover for you to try and guess. So I will start off with clue number 1. I am a centre forward.
Willis Furtado.
Callum Smith. I think he played for Airdrie as well.
Callum Smith. I'm going straight into the Airdrie chat, like.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe that's not how people design it, Should McStay or Should Dargo, but for me it seems logical.
Clue number 2. I spent 1 season with the Rovers and played 27 games, scoring 6 goals.
That's not
Willis Furtado then. Maybe he got 6. 6 goals, 1 season. I need an era, Robbie. This isn't used to me.
Yeah.
See, my brain's doing the Airdrie thing because that's how I think your brain's going to work. And the only name I can get in my head has already been done on this is Andy Smith. Centre forward. 6 goals. It's a pretty bog standard centre forward, isn't it?
Yeah. And 1 season, so nothing memorable.
No, I'll pass the now. I'll stick with Furtado. It's definitely not, but
yeah.
Carol?
It's not, but I'll stick with Callum Smith because I can't think of anything else.
Clue number 3, I'll just give you the hero one now then. I was brought to the club by Grant Murray.
Ooh. Centre forward.
So it's a centre forward, spent 1 season with Rovers, playing 27 goals, scoring, or 27 games, scoring 6 goals even. He was signed by Grant Murray.
Right, so that was kind of.
Oh, it's the cup winning.
Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grant Murray's first season. Then he won the Ramsden's Cup.
And then
It's not going to be anybody for that squad because all the centre forwards in the Ramsden's Cup, with the exception of what's his face, but he's already been in it.
Callum Elliott.
Yeah, and also your other man's been done as well. His brother played.
Gordon Smith.
Gordon Smith. We have had him, have we not?
I don't think we have.
Gordon Smith. I thought we'd had him
as we say in
already.
English, passa parabola. I'm going to pass on this one. I am. It's the one season and 6 goals, so it's just not.
I have played for 14 professional clubs.
Oh.
None of which are called Airdrie. And was capped at under 21s.
Oh, capped at under 21s. That could be Gordon Smith. He must have been in and around when he was at Hearts. How many clubs?
14 professional clubs.
Oh.
14's a lot.
for a
That's
centre
journeyman
forward.
territory.
Yeah.
Fair comment.
That's like Liam Buchanan territory, but it's no Liam Buchanan because he definitely scored more than 6 goals for us. Surely.
And I would have mentioned Berwick Rangers as well.
You would have mentioned Berwick Rangers. Also, he was Barry Smith, wasn't he? He was later. Granted. I'm trying to go back to that squad in my head, that first season. Oh. 14.
It's a lot of clubs. That's a lot of clubs.
Did you say he was capped for Scotland under 21s?
No.
Or he was capped at under 21 level?
He was capped at under 21 level.
Right. I don't think he's Scottish.
Wry grin on your face now.
Yeah, no, I'm beginning to think. Oh man, what's his name? That's absolutely terrible. Christian Nadi.
Is that your guess?
Yeah, I'll take Nadi. 14's a lot though.
Nope, mine's gone blank. Absolutely blank.
Clue number 5. My first ever league goal was against a team in London.
Eh?
A team in the wording of that's really weird, Robbie.
Yeah.
A team in London. Not a team from London. A team in London.
In London, from London.
All right, okay, that's fine. You've always got to think about the wording. Yeah, I'm sticking with Nadi then. I mean, he did play down south.
I think that
you'd be absolutely right to do that, Blair, because clue number 6 was when I loved to score against Hibs, but my most memorable goal for Rovers was against Rangers at Ibrox.
Rangers.
So,
that was actually the squad I ended up getting to. I was thinking in my head, I was like, right, that squad at Ibrox, I was like, Conroy, Nadi. Nadi. It's amazing how you can hear a clue and hear something else in the clue. Because as soon as you said under 21s, I was thinking Scotland under. You just instantly go to Scottish. So he's played for 14. Now again, you didn't say 14 clubs in Scotland. You just said 14 clubs.
Correct.
But automatically, I went to 14 clubs in Scotland and just thought they were jobbing around.
So did I.
So let's take a look. Born on the 18th of September 1984. Now the reason I cut this down, because he's played for in France. He's played for 2 teams in France. He played for Troyes and Le Havre, and then moved to Sheffield United. That's where he scored the goal against Arsenal. Right. Then obviously a spell at Hearts for 3 years. Went over to Cyprus, and he was playing for a team in Larnaca. And then he went over to Thailand for a few seasons over there. So he kind of disappeared off the radar from Scottish football, and then came back with Dundee. And I think a lot of people were sort of eyebrows raised when Nadi came back, because it became a bit of a joke figure almost. A lot of people obviously going straight away for the weight, which then led in turn to probably one of my favourite, funniest celebrations I've ever seen in football, which was him scoring at Easter Road after they'd sat slaughtering him for being fat, and he just tore off his shirt, and he's just absolutely shredded. It was
honestly, I would love to be that fat. It'd be incredible. It looked amazing.
And then there was the game at Easter Road. I remember the one after that we played them there that season. Hibs had absolutely battered us for about 90 minutes. They were 1-0 up, and my manager, who at the time who's a Hibs fan, texted me saying, "You're going to get a goal here because we've absolutely tanked you today, and we've only got the one." And then 2 minutes later, he was just like, "It would be that bastard. It would be him."
Yeah.
But aye,
Always came across as a really, really nice guy as well.
yeah.
I think he had his demons as well, to be fair, but
He
really nice
definitely
guy.
did. And I think that was actually when he was with us. He's
Yeah.
spoken about it at length in the media and things like that. But since then, he obviously went on to play for Accies. He had a spell with Dumbarton, but again, he got back to scoring against Hibs and then down to Stranraer.
At some point, yeah.
Went back to Dumbarton, and then he's been sort of Troon, Anbank, Muirkirk, and Petersham. So,
did he not? He was at Troon. Did he not end up going back to
Annan?
Who was Annan? Yeah, I remember that. He came back into the league.
Yeah, there's a few players that have done that before, I think, in terms of they drop down the levels and then they come back up. I mean,
bounce back up.
I think probably Dylan Easton's probably the most famous example of it, albeit very different circumstances that he's came back up. But yeah, Christian Nadi for that one. Thoroughly enjoyable looking back at his career. Yeah, thank you once again for taking the time to listen this evening. And of course to yourself, Blair and Carol, for joining me. And we'll be back with our post-match podcast, probably likely on Sunday or maybe even Monday evening for this one. But yeah, I will include a link if you don't already listen to it. Make sure that you get in that interview with John Greakin. But as ever, thank you for taking the time to listen, and bye for now.